This week, on RuneScape Retold, we take a look at a zany inventor, a man who's more poultry than manly, a worried fiancé, and a haunted house. Later in the episode, we'll have our NPC of the week, the evil chicken. So thank you for joining us as we start episode 1. Be earnest with me. Welcome, adventurers, to the first episode of RuneScape Retold. On this podcast, we delve into the quirky and curious tales that take place throughout the world of RuneScape. I'm your host, Wimbop, and today we're diving into an incredible story about love, mystery, and transformation. Now, this isn't your typical tale of star-crossed lovers. No, this one is a little bit more foul. If you haven't guessed it yet, we're going to be talking about the quest, Ernest the Chicken. Now, I know what you're thinking. How in the world are we going to talk for 20 minutes about something as simple as Ernest the Chicken? You go in, you click blue, you talk to the weird guy upstairs, you walk around the house and find some things, and you're done. But what I actually want to talk about in this podcast isn't just the quest and what happens in it, but also what happens before. I think that the majority of the things that I enjoy about this game are actually in the world that has been built. And so if you would join me in world building today, as we take a look not just at the simple fetch quest, but instead at the characters who are a part of it. As we take a moment to actually look at Ernest and Veronica, the chicken and the fiancé, as we take a moment to actually recognize what Draenor Manor is, and as we learn a little bit more about Professor Ottenstein, one of the most strange, untalked about, and forgotten characters who actually has a surprising amount of information about him in this game. And so, before we even begin the quest, I want to start with the story that happens before the story. Let's get right to it. If you would join me in setting the stage and the coastal town of Draenor Village. If you can hear the markets bustling, the seed sales just happening on their own, with all of those people in black masks just subtly slipping their hands into the pockets of a farmer who has no idea what's going on. Ernest and Veronica are making their way through town. They've come from Lumbridge and they have plans to get to Falador. And so, Ernest, being the brave protagonist of our story today, sets off on a journey with his fiancée, a step ahead, showing her the way. They leave north, out of Draenor Village, and they're making their way to a crossroads, when suddenly, out of nowhere, he hears that oh-so-terrifying call. Now, if I can be honest with you, I remember when I was first walking through that Draenor area and I saw that masked man yell, "Stand and deliver." I remember holding my bronze sword and my wooden shield and trying to fight back, seeing that it was a losing battle, that his metal was superior. I remember thinking it was a real person who had somehow broken the game and was attacking me, and I don't know exactly what was going through Ernest's mind. But I do know that the spook from that highwayman led him down a path that he was not familiar with. Ernest stumbled up, lost and scared, upon a massive house, Draenor Manor. Ernest wasn't aware of what was happening there. All he knew is that he was lost, and that Veronica kept nudging him, reminding him that we could have bought a newcomer's map in Lumbridge. Hey, weren't we supposed to turn left back there? Shouldn't we just ask someone for directions? Ernest, being the sweet and generous and brave man that he is, says, yeah, no, we're totally fine. I'm not lost. I'm definitely not lost. Not convincing anyone, Veronica says, look, just go and ask for directions. And so, Ernest, in that first moment of proving he's nothing like a chicken, stands up, dusts himself off from his fright with the man in the mask, and begins to walk through this gated entryway. The trees are leafless and lifeless as he wanders slowly towards the door. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you're walking towards a mystical house surrounded with bats and dead trees, and you hear the howling of poltergeists inside, but I think that there's a few things we need to highlight quickly. If you're looking to get directions and you find yourself to be in this sort of situation, there are some signs that I think might encourage you to turn back. Whether it's being slapped in the face by a tree that is both alive and dead, whether it is the fact that there are inexplainable howling sounds coming from the house, or Honestly, if you look at the house and you just think, there's 0% chance that a normal human being would ever live in those circumstances, you might be best not going to ask for directions. But love does make us blind. And Ernest, being as brave as he could and as stubborn as he was, found the resolve to walk straight up to that door. He knocked on the door, but he got no answer. He tried another knock, and not really wanting to go and press his luck too far, he said, "Anyone home?" Without a response, he pushed on the door, and it swung open. "Hello?" he called out. "Anybody home?" And then he gathered himself once more and stepped over the threshold. At that moment, the door slammed shut behind him. The response that Ernest did get from that hello was not one that he expected. He looked out past the front entrance and he could hear this clanging of feet. He recognized that his host was on the way to meet him, but his host wasn't something that he had ever expected to see. It was a small chair, hopping around the house, all on its own. Shocked by the sight, Ernest, hands up, took a quick step back. He said, "Whoa, chair, I don't want any trouble." His host didn't seem to get the message and just continued to move closer and closer to Ernest. Ernest, now fear starting to strike into his heart, reaches his hand behind himself and finds the handle for the door. He's resolved that it's just not worth seeming brave if you're going to die to a tiny chair. He finds the door handle and begins to shake it. He attempts to push the door open, but the door has been sealed shut behind him. With no way to turn back, Ernest gathers himself. He remembers his sweet fiancée, Veronica, waiting for him just outside the house, and he decided that he needs to find the host, the person who lives here, and they'll give him the directions that he needs. So he begins to wander through the mansion. He walks past a bookshelf that has a mysterious lever beside it. We'll come back to that at another time. He walks through the stairway and finds a big staircase into what appears to be a crypt, the dull candlelight making its way up the stairs. He doesn't feel like he quite has the strength or the bravery to face that one, so we'll pass on that for now as well. He continues. He walks until he finds a stairway up. He climbs the stairs, ascending, and meets another chair, which causes him to run as fast as he can through the next room. Entering into the next room, he sees a ladder, and he can hear what sounds like talking. Finally, he thinks to himself, we're about to meet an actual human being. As he gets there, he listens in for a moment just to see what it is that he's dealing with. And from just a short time listening at the foot of that ladder, it was clear that we were not dealing with any man of sound mind. Ernest, being properly afraid, resolves to do the only thing that he thinks that he can do. Ascend to the final place of the mansion. Now, this is just an aside. If you're ever in this scenario, I would actually recommend that you don't go into the room with the rambling man at the top of the haunted mansion. Usually, I would say it's best to trust that little voice that tells you, I probably shouldn't go in there. But when we're blinded by love, we'll do just about anything. And so Ernest begins to climb the ladder. And I know what you're thinking. Well, now we're at that point. He goes up there, he turns into a chicken, and this is my moment as a hero to shine, to save the day, and to appear. But before we do any of that, before we introduce our adventurer, before we even begin the quest or talk to Veronica, I want to take a moment to highlight an interesting NPC who doesn't get a lot of love. I'm talking about Professor Audenstein. And so, I'm just going to list a few fast facts about our main man. First off, he's created security systems for a mysterious woman in Taverley who's a part of a different quest. If you think you know who it is, let me know. No Googling allowed, obviously. The second thing to note is that he's only a tenant in the house. It's actually owned by a mysterious man who lives in that creepy candlelit basement that we talked about. Third, the ghouls Here, they aren't exactly a fan of his meddling with science in their supernatural home. This is not one of those classic religious versus science arguments. Rather, it's just a bunch of ghouls who don't want to deal with the electricity. And finally, Odenstein has built one of the most incredible devices of any generation in RuneScape. It's a multi-purpose machine. It's been used for time travel, generation of light, monster creation, and, well, what it's most known for is being a broken transmutation device, now known as the Pultrifier. I think that's enough of an aside about our zany professor, Odenstein. And we rejoin Ernest as he ascends the ladder, seeing flashes of light and unsure on what he's walking into. And before he even has a chance to react, before he even has a chance to say, hey, how do I get to Falador, things begin to shift. He looks where his arm is and sees a chicken wing, and down at his feet he sees that his toes have forgone themselves to become talons instead. He truly is in a foul predicament. Within minutes, no part of Ernest is even remotely recognizable anymore. Where once stood this not particularly brave or heroic man, instead stands a simple chicken, pecking at the ground, lost, alone, and soon to be forgotten. If it wasn't for one person who remembered him. Thankfully, he was on this journey with another, Veronica, and that is where our adventure begins. Now, I'm not looking to do a quest guide here, and the truth is, there's not that much more that happens here from a story or lore perspective, and so I'll give you the SparkNotes version of this quest, which is basically the whole quest. So, you meet Veronica outside of the house, concerned, sad, worried for her fiancé, and she says, hey, listen, my fiancé, he's great, he's brave, he went in there to get some directions, and he hasn't come out for like a long time. Could you please check on him? And so, like the brave adventurer we are, we make our way inside. Unlike Ernest, we're not afraid of any ghouls or chairs. We think they're awesome. We make our way to the ladder, climb up, and meet Professor Odenstein. See, in a bizarre twist of fate, Ernest had been turned into a chicken. Yes, a chicken, by Odenstein. And the professor looks at us and says, look, it's not that bad. And we think, how could this happen? And he says, I can reverse it. But it won't be simple. And so our brave adventurers are told that in order to help Ernest return to his human form, they're going to have to do a few things. Find an oil can, a pressure gauge, and a simple rubber tube. And the truth is, that is basically where everything but just getting the stuff ends. Now, I could walk you through step by step how you do those things, but I think that this quest in specific is one that's maybe better left open. And if you've never done it before, or you've only done it with a wiki guide or a quest helper, I would encourage you just to go to Draenor Manor, click around, finish the quest all on your own. And so, the brave adventurer completes the 3 puzzles. He successfully attains the items and returns to Professor Odenstein with all 3 items in his inventory. The professor, with a mix of excitement and apprehension as he's going to lose his new chicken sidekick, reassembles his machine. The adventurers take a deep breath. There's a pull of a lever, a flash of light, a puff of smoke, and all at once, the transformation is complete. Ernest, now restored to his human form, is confused a little. He's thinking human thoughts again instead of chicken thoughts, whatever those might be. But he's grateful. He thanks our brave adventurer and returns to his fiancée, Veronica, who is overjoyed to see Ernest is safe and sound. And so, with that, the first chapter in RuneScape Retold comes to a close. Ernest and Veronica can look forward to their future together thanks to your bravery and resourcefulness. Professor Odenstein continues his experiments, forever the eccentric scientist that this world doesn't really need but still has. A little known fact about this is actually the Killer Watts, possibly the worst Slayer creature in the entire game, are unlocked because Professor Odenstein created them. And so when finishing Ernest the Chicken, congratulations, you can kill those things. Ernest the Chicken is a classic RuneScape quest. It's full of humor, puzzles, and just a touch of the bizarre. It's a reminder that in this vast and magical world, adventure can come in the most unexpected forms. And you know what? I think that's true in our lives too. Now it's time for our NPC of the week. This is where we highlight a character from the vast world of RuneScape. Sometimes as simple as a goblin, or like today, we're going to take a look at the evil chicken. Now this is a truly nefarious figure. The evil chicken is one of those characters that combines humor and horror in a way that this game can. With its beady red eyes and its penchant for chaos, the evil chicken has been terrorizing players since its release in 2004. Now this malevolent poultry isn't your average farmyard fowl. It's a darkly enchanted creature that delights in attacking unsuspecting adventurers. A master of the ambush, the evil chicken would appear behind unsuspecting players who were just trying to skill and yell, "Bork, bork, bork," before launching into a frenzied attack. These surprise encounters often caught players off guard. It would turn your routine skilling session into a fight for survival. But the evil chicken story is interesting because it doesn't actually end with it just being a random event. Instead, Jagex chose to make this little chicken an important part of the Recipe for Disaster quest. His realm is found deep within Xanaris, the fairy realm, which we'll talk about another time, filled with dangerous creatures and traps. What makes the evil chicken truly memorable is just the challenge that it presents. To me, it's a reminder that sometimes even the most mundane things can turn into something formidable. Whether it's something in my life that should be easy but I struggle with, or whether it's a chicken that I go to kill for some feathers and it turns out to be a level 159 shooting magic at me. And so that's our NPC of the week. The evil chicken keeps you on your toes. Or at least it used to, before Jagex decided to nerf him. Thank you so much for joining me for the first episode of RuneScape Retold. I have thoroughly enjoyed this process of trying to figure out how to tell a good story. And I hope that if you've listened this far, you're enjoying it too. I do hope that you will continue on this journey with me, as I promise I will continue to strive to improve. And if you did enjoy, there's a few ways that you can actually really help me out. First, I just want to say, you can follow this on wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. If you want to go above and beyond, you can leave a comment or a review. It would mean the world to me. If you have ideas for the show, if you want to submit an NPC to be a part of our NPC of the week, or if you have a specific quest that you think we should tackle next, there's a few ways you can send it to me. 1, through the comments, or 2, you can hop over to twitch.tv/wimbop and drop a follow. We will be doing some of our research on Twitch, but all editing and recording will be done offline because I get easily distracted by you guys. So, thanks again for being here. I really do hope you enjoyed, and I am so excited to be back with you next week with episode 2, Swamp Man Good.